Your hands on the door handle. You haven't said a word yet. The guy's still talking. Something about horsepower, something about the trim package. You're not listening. You're doing math in your head. 600 a month? Maybe 650. You run the number 3 times before he finishes his sentence. He hasn't told you the price. He's told you the payment. That's not an accident. $42,000 a year. That's what you make. Nobody in this building knows that number, but he already pulled your credit 2 minutes ago, back at his desk, while you were still looking at the paint color. He knows more about you right now than your last 3 landlords combined. By the end of this, he'll see exactly what he saw. The second the report loaded on his screen. You're standing on a lot in Toledo. Tuesday afternoon, the kind of gray sky that doesn't commit to rain. The car is 11 years old, 147,000 miles. A crack in the windshield shaped like a lightning bolt that's been there so long you stopped seeing it. You didn't come here today. You came here because the old one finally quit, dead in a Kroger parking lot 3 days ago, groceries melting in the back seat. You called your sister first. Not the dealership. Heh. She picked up on the second ring and didn't say, "I told you so," which is its own kind of love when you're 24 and stranded in a parking lot. You're not asking what the car costs, you're asking what it costs a month. That's the only question that matters when you make $10 an hour before tax. The guy behind the desk, his name's Dale, doesn't run a real credit check. Buy here, pay here doesn't need one. He just asks what you make and writes it down. He slides a paper across the desk. 72 months, $287 a month. You do the math anyway, $287.29 times 72. You don't say the total out loud. Nobody does at this level. 22% interest. You don't ask why. You already know why. You know your credit score down to the number, the way some people know their blood type. You sign. You drive off the lot feeling something close to relief. You text your sister a photo of the car. She sends back a thumbs up and nothing else. You understand, there's nothing else to say about a car like this. Then, on Thursday, your insurance quote lands in your inbox. Full coverage, required by the loan. $191 a month. Nobody mentioned that part on the lot. You sit with your phone in your hand for a minute before you close the email. That's $478 a month all in for a car that's worth maybe $4,000 sitting in your driveway. You skip your gym membership that week to make it work. Do not cancel it. Skip it. You tell yourself you'll go back once things settle. You already know things won't settle for a while. Nobody at this level asks what the car costs. They ask what it costs per month. Then they find out later what it actually costs. You're at a dealership now. Not a lot. A dealership, glass doors, a coffee machine, a guy in a tie instead of a guy in a hoodie. You make $42,000 a year. Warehouse shift lead, first job with a real title on the badge. The car in front of you is new, base model, cloth seats. You can still smell the plastic off-gassing from the factory. The finance guy, Marcus, gold nameplate on his desk, pulls a real credit report this time. A real bank is involved now, not just the dealer's own paper. He glances at the screen for a second longer than he needs to. You don't know what that means. You assume it's fine. It is mostly. 60 months, 6.9%. Better than 22 doesn't sound like a headline, but it's the first time a number worked in your favor instead of against you. Marcus slides across a second sheet before you've even asked. Extended warranty, $42 a month, tacked onto the loan like it was always part of it. You almost say no. You don't, quite. You say maybe, which in a dealership means yes. The payment comes out to $411 a month. You feel good walking to your car. You call your dad from the parking lot. He asks the interest rate before he asks the color. That's just how he is. You tell him 6.9, and he goes quiet for a second, like he's doing math of his own, comparing it to something from decades ago. That's not bad, he finally says. It's the closest thing to a compliment you've gotten from him about money in years. You tell your roommate it's basically the same as what you were paying before in gas and tow trucks and duct tape. It's not the same. It's more. You know it's more. 2 weeks later, the protection package you agreed to without really reading, paint sealant, fabric guard, something called VIN etching, shows up as a separate charge on your first statement. $68 one time. But it wasn't in the number Marcus said out loud. You call and ask about it, they tell you it's non-refundable. You knew that. You just didn't know it was there. You start reading the fine print on things now. Not everything, just this. It's the first financial document you've ever actually read start to finish, and you're a little annoyed it took getting burned to make you do it. Same machine that ran the numbers on the 11-year-old car in Toledo. Different desk, different tie, same math underneath, just with better lighting. Different city now, Columbus, maybe. On a Saturday morning, the sun is actually out for once. You make $60,000 a year. Operations manager, 3 years in. You didn't get here by accident, but it didn't feel dramatic either. Just showing up, one Monday after another. You walk onto the lot already pre-approved. You did that online the night before, on your phone, half watching something on the other screen. 2 banks came back with offers. Not 1. 2. Nobody explains why. You just noticed the second offer landed 4 minutes after the first, like they knew you were shopping them against each other. You were. The SUV you're looking at is a step up. Not flashy. Just more room, more features, the kind of car that doesn't announce your income but doesn't apologize for it either. The finance manager pulls up your file and glances at the trade-in appraisal before she says a word. Your old car's worth more than you thought. That changes the conversation before it starts. 5.2%. 60 months. You could have stretched it to 72 and lowered the payment. But you didn't. For once, the smart choice and the easy choice are the same. You put $4,000 down, your own money. Not because someone told you to. Because you had it, and having it changes how you spend it. Your coworker Danielle, 2 desks over, asks how it went. You tell her the rate. She whistles low and says her last car loan was almost double that. You don't say anything back. There's nothing kind to say that doesn't sound like bragging. Then, 3 weeks in, the dealership calls. A documentation fee from the state title transfer. $41. Nobody's fault exactly. Just one of those things that shows up after the excitement wears off. You pay it without arguing. At $28,000 a year, $41 would have meant something. At 60, it's just a Tuesday. A second call comes a month later. A recall notice, unrelated to the loan, a software update for the parking sensors. Free. You almost don't go in. You go anyway, because now you're the kind of person who takes care of things instead of letting them slide. You're not comparing yourself to people who make more than you anymore. You're comparing yourself to the version of you that stood in Toledo 3 years ago, doing math on a piece of paper because a car in a Kroger lot wouldn't start. That version of you would not recognize this parking lot. Or the way nobody's watching you sign, like you might change your mind. Charlotte. A Thursday evening because that's when you finally had time. You make $85,000 a year. Senior engineer. The kind of raise that came with a new title and a new parking spot, neither of which you asked for out loud. You walked in wanting the base trim. Something practical, something that made sense on paper. Devin, the salesman, doesn't push you toward the upgraded model. He just mentions it's actually easier to finance right now. A manufacturer incentive on that trim specifically. Better rate, bigger rebate. That's when something strange happens. The base model, the cheap one, the sensible one, actually costs you more per month once you run the numbers. No rebate, no special rate, just the sticker price and a standard loan. You sit there doing math for the second time in your life, where the math doesn't go the direction it's supposed to. The car you wanted less ends up cheaper than the car you wanted more. You take the upgrade. Not because you got talked into it, because the spreadsheet told you to. 48 months this time, not 72. You could afford the shorter term now, and shorter means less interest, and it feels good to know that on purpose instead of by accident. 20% down, $11,000. Gone from savings in one afternoon. You don't check the account 3 times after like you used to. $640 a month all in. You mention the number at dinner with your girlfriend, half joking about how strange it is that the nicer car was the cheaper decision. She doesn't find it as funny as you do. She's still renting a room from a stranger to save for a car of her own, and for a second, the joke sits wrong in the air between you. You change the subject. You feel a little bad about it later, alone, doing dishes. Then a month later, the dealership's loyalty app, the one you agreed to during checkout without really reading, starts charging $4.99 monthly for roadside assistance you already have through your regular insurance. You cancel it. It takes 2 phone calls and 11 minutes on hold. Little money now. It wasn't always small. You remember when $4.99 would have been a decision, not an errand. You wonder for a second, what happens to people who never get shown the version with the rebate at all? Somewhere tonight, 3 cars won't start. One is in Toledo. The owner makes $28,000 a year. She calls a tow truck and does math on her phone the entire ride, calculating whether the repair costs less than a bus pass for a month. It doesn't. She pays anyway. One is in Charlotte. The owner makes $85,000 a year. He calls his mechanic, a guy he's used for 3 years, and gets a loaner car for free because of the relationship. He doesn't think about the cost until the bill arrives, and even then, only for a second. One is in Newport Beach. The owner doesn't know the car won't start. Someone else found out first. A property manager, maybe, or an assistant, and it's already been handled by the time anyone mentions it to him at all. Same broken alternator, roughly. Same Tuesday night. 3 completely different problems. The alternator doesn't know what you make. The car doesn't care about your salary. It fails the same way for everyone. What changes is everything around the failure. Who finds out, how fast it gets fixed, whether you experience it as a crisis or a footnote. That gap is the real story here. Not the price of the car. The price of the inconvenience. Austin, a Tuesday. Because weekdays are the only time the good inventory shows up before the weekend crowd finds it. You make $130,000 a year, director level now. 2 years into a title that took 11 years to earn. There are 2 cars in your driveway already. This is the 3rd conversation, not the first one. A family car, the kind with a 3rd row nobody uses, and a cup holder that's had dried apple juice in it since February. Your kid left a trail of goldfish crackers under the back seat of the car you're trading in. The appraiser doesn't say anything about it. He's seen worse. You could pay cash. You know this. The number in your brokerage account could cover it without blinking. You don't. Your advisor mentioned it once, almost in passing, over a call about something unrelated. The loan rate's under 5%. Index funds have historically averaged closer to 9 over long stretches. No guarantee, just what the last few decades looked like. That gap is the whole decision. You're not financing because you need to. You're financing because not financing would actually cost you something. Your wife asks, half joking, why you'd take out a loan when you clearly have the money sitting right there. You try to explain the math. She listens for about 90 seconds, then says, just don't let the car know it's smarter than us, and goes back to buckling the car seat. You laugh. You're not entirely sure she's wrong. The dealer, a woman named Priya, doesn't ask if you want the extended warranty. She asks if you want it bundled into the loan or billed separately. The question isn't yes or no anymore. It's just logistics. 48 months, 2.9%. A rate that used to only exist in commercials you assumed were lying. You put nothing down. Not because you don't have it. Because pulling it out of the account, where it's growing, would cost you more than the loan does. A week later, the dealership's finance department calls about gap insurance you thought you'd declined. Turns out you'd said no to the wrong line item on the form. $43 a month quietly added. You catch it. You call. It gets removed in 9 minutes. No argument, no hold music. That part's different now, too. Your old college roommate texts you a link to the same model, asking if it's worth it. You type out a long answer about financing versus cash, then delete most of it and just send, yeah, get it if you want it. Some conversations aren't worth having over text. You don't celebrate getting approved anymore. You celebrate getting a lower rate than last time. Scottsdale. On a Friday afternoon, the sun is low enough to catch the windshields at an angle that makes everything on the lot look expensive, even the stuff that isn't. You make $220,000 a year. Partner track at a firm most people outside your industry have never heard of. You lease now? You stopped buying 3 cars ago. Ownership isn't really the point anymore. Access is. The dealer, a man named Theo, already has your file open before you park. Not magic. His system flags repeat clients the second an appointment's booked and pulls your last 3 transactions. He remembers your daughter's name too. You mentioned her once, 11 months ago, in passing. He brings it up as it matters to him, and maybe it does. A little, in the way good service always blurs the line between genuine and rehearsed. The car isn't on the showroom floor. It's in a back garage, one of 4 in the country, with this exact spec. He walks you straight past everyone else waiting up front. You catch a woman's eye near the entrance, still filling out a credit application at a little kiosk, glancing over at you as you're being led past the rope. Neither of you says anything. You've been here. You don't know how to tell her that, and it wouldn't help if you did. 36-month lease. 10,000 miles a year, nowhere near enough for how you actually drive. And you both already know you'll eat the overage charge without blinking when the term's up. $2,100 a month. You don't say the number out loud to anyone. Not because it's shameful. Because saying it invites a conversation you don't want to have with people who don't live here anymore. Your old roommate from Toledo calls sometimes. You still love him. But when he mentions his car payment, the one that felt enormous to you 9 years ago, you go quiet in a way you didn't used to. Not because you look down on him. Because explaining why $2,000 a month makes sense would take an hour, and neither of you has that hour to spare on it. You still negotiate here, just not over the monthly payment anymore, over the mileage cap, the end-of-lease buyout, the stuff that actually moves the needle at this level. Your accountant flags something in a routine call. A small discrepancy in how the lease payments were categorized for the business write-off. Nothing serious. 90 minutes on a Tuesday and it's fixed. You don't think about it again. 10 years ago, a mistake like that would have kept you up for a week. The base model isn't even mentioned. Nobody in this room has looked at one in years. Newport Beach. No specific day. Meetings run your calendar now, not the calendar itself. Your net worth crossed 8 figures 2 years ago. You stopped tracking the exact number the way you used to track gas prices. Someone else tracks it for you now. There are 4 cars in the garage. One hasn't moved in 6 weeks. Nobody's worried about that, including you. The 5th one, the one this afternoon, isn't finished yet. You put in the order 8 months ago, sat with a specialist for maybe 20 minutes total, picked a color and a stitching pattern, and moved on with your day. Your assistant handles the paperwork now. Not because you can't. Because your time is worth more doing something else, and you did the math on that a long time ago, the same way you used to do math on a loan payment. There's no financing conversation. The money moved from one account to another without you watching it happen. Your son, 17, asks if he can get his first car the way you got yours. Used, a little rough, something to earn responsibility on. You almost laugh, then realize he's serious, and you say yes, mostly because you remember what it felt like to earn something instead of just receiving it. He picks a car worth about what your dinner reservation cost last week. You don't tell him that. You still negotiate. Just not over the sticker price anymore. You negotiate delivery timelines, priority builds, the stuff that actually matters when money isn't the constraint. At every level below this one, the question was always, can I afford it? Here that question just gets quiet, not gone, quiet. You still glance at a number sometimes, out of habit more than need. An old business partner calls to catch up, mentions he just financed a car for his daughter, walks you through the rate like it's interesting information, forgetting for a second who he's talking to. You listen anyway. You always listen anyway. It costs you nothing, and it seems to matter to him. You think about Toledo sometimes. Not often. You remember the exact number, $287 a month. The way people remember a childhood phone number. Not because you use it, because it's just still there. You couldn't explain this life to that version of you. Not because he wouldn't understand the math, because back then, the math was the whole conversation. Now it's barely in the room. There's no lot, no showroom, no late-night appointment booked on your phone. There's a phone call from a person, not a department. Someone who has your direct line, and you have his. 3 of these exist in the world. Maybe 4. Nobody's entirely sure. It depends on which craftsman is free that season, not which factory line is open. You've never sat in the car. You won't, not until it's finished sometime next year. Nobody mentions price. It's not rudeness. Price stopped being information a long time ago. It's just a number someone else moves quietly, so it never becomes your problem. You still make choices here. Which material, which finish, timing. Just not the choice everyone below this level is used to making, whether you can. A journalist reaches out for a short piece on collectors like you. You decline politely through someone else. Not because you have anything to hide, because explaining any of this out loud to someone who will try to make it make sense to a general audience feels like translating a language that doesn't have the right words in the other one. Your grandson visits over the holidays and asks what it's like to just buy whatever you want. You think about it longer than he expects you to. You tell him it's less like buying and more like waiting, just from a very short list of things worth waiting for. He doesn't fully get it yet. You didn't either, at his age. You think sometimes about someone standing on a gravel lot in a town like Toledo right now, doing math in his head before a salesman finishes a sentence. You were that person once. You remember the number, $287 a month. The way you remember a childhood phone number. Not because you use it. Because it's just still there. You don't feel guilty about the distance. Guilt would mean believing you're still playing the same game. You're not. You haven't been for a long time. There was never one moment when you stopped asking if you could afford something. The question just got quieter every year, until it wasn't in the room anymore. Back in Toledo, same gray Tuesday sky that never quite commits to rain. A different hand is on a different door handle now, someone you've never met, standing where the story started. The guy behind the counter is still talking about horsepower, still talking about the trim package. She's not listening. She's doing the same math. $600 a month, maybe $650. She doesn't know about the insurance quote that's coming Thursday. The fee that shows up after the excitement wears off. The document she'll finally start reading all the way through, a little annoyed it took getting burned to make her do it. She doesn't know about the version of this same Tuesday happening in Charlotte right now, where somebody else is doing the exact same math and getting a completely different answer for reasons that have nothing to do with how hard either of them worked this month. She doesn't know about the version happening in a garage in Newport Beach either, where nobody's doing math at all, where the question that's sitting in her chest right now stopped being a question a long time ago, so long ago that the person living there can barely remember what it felt like to ask it. Somewhere, all 3 of these are true at the same time. Same Tuesday, same kind of car, technically. Completely different math. Right now, none of that matters to her. It's just her hand on the handle, and the math,